that a hypothesis is arguably ruled out in the Republic as being the primary method employed for grasping forms. Yet in the Phaedo, Socrates relies on just this method of hypothesis to defend his belief in them. Given the critique of hypothesizing in the Republic, Socrates here must fall short of the expert of dialectic in his grasp of forms. While hypothesizing ostensibly suffices to yield knowledge of forms in the Phaedo, in the Republic it is at best a necessary method for any preliminary investigation into specifically the good itself. All other forms subsequently being understood specifically in light of one's knowledge of the unhypothetical good itself. Accordingly, it is rather telling that in the Phaedo, Socrates calls the method of hypothesizing which he relies on as confusing as malicious. And therefore, it becomes just like mathematics. The best indication that mathematics plays a role in grasping forms, that is the formula in the Phaedo, is the presumed familiarity with geometry being behind the method of all hypotheses. Here, I see the immediate connection between this subtle familiarity with mathematics in Phaedo as well as in Meno and the prominent role mathematician plays in philosophers' ascent to the good in the Republic. And this is openly cited in Meno that geometry is also referred to in connection with recollection at Phaedo 73b. Finally, in the last section, what I interpret, philosophy is taken something ahead of mathematics or supra-mathematical in nature. This brings us to reflect on a related point, the difference internal to philosophy. Abstract mathematics, broadly constructed, looks to that which is eternal and always the same. What is more, it is conscious of its inquiries into these universals, qua-universals. However, abstract mathematics' grasp of the metaphysical and epistemological implications of the nature of its intelligibles is limited. This is a point that Plato stresses explicitly in both the Republic as well as the Philebus. And this limitation serves as a convenient reminder of what is consistently identified in certain dialogues as supra-mathematical zenith of philosophy. In the Republic, this supra-mathematical science is cast as the science of good as such. In the Sophist, Statesman, and Philebus, the science is presented as what we could call a science of formal ontology. Accordingly, as much as Plato lauds a variety of intellectual disciplines for their inherent philosophical nature, he does not consider all of them equal in value, equal in importance. Thus, the meaning and purpose of philosophy, what I deduce on the basis of this discussion is the notion of philosophy as it gets depicted in the Republic and certain dialogues roughly sums up in three different aspects. First, as a refined study of forms to attain highest form, that is good. Concurrently, as an esoteric science. Number two, more generally, a psychical disposition moving one to analyze, that is aporia. And number three, a synthesized life of theoretical and political activity with the objective of achieving a good life, that is ataraxia. So here are the references taken. So that was my understanding of what a philosopher is, what a philosopher should do, what is the meaning of philosophy, and what are the purposes to be served by the discipline of philosophy. Quite interestingly, I find some sort of resonance between the first order or second order inquiry of analytical philosophy and that of the philosophical understanding of Plato. So that is what I had to present. Thank you.
Okay. Sir,
Thank
good
you.
job again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sukla, for your technical paper. Uh, it's not that easy to understand. First of all, the technical terms involved and the technicality behind the paper. It needs a proper mind to understand you. Let's see what the people say. It's a good paper. I understand to the level I understood. I don't think I have understood it fully, but I enjoyed the paper, your lecture. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but many people are here. I see Professor Mohin Mohammed, if he is there, he's an expert in this area, in Greek philosophy. I request Professor Mohin Mohammed to unmute himself and make some observations on what Dr. Sukla has presented. Over to Mohin Mohammed, sir.
Yeah. Hello, Professor Sukla.
Namaskar, sir.
Ikanite.
Sir.
Parakalo, parakalo. Uh, Professor Sukla, yes, is a very succinctly you have tried to put the definition of philosophy uh, in the light of Republic. Quite rightly, you have pointed out that philosophy for Plato is quite methodological, and dialectic stance as a primary methods, the best methods, Plato has said the rest of the methods are second best method. Dialectic is the first order method. Dialectic, Plato has never discussed in any of the dialogue in detail. We have to understand the nature and structure of dialectic from the sporadic remarks he has left in different dialogues. Like the earlier dialogues which you have just named, from Euthyphro, Apology, Laches, and so on and so forth. Uh, uh, but dialectic is not a single method. Can you have referred to Atlantic method of Plato, a method of hypothesis, method of collection and division? You have not given a detailed exposition of that. And I personally feel that no single methods, either Atlantic or method of hypothesis or method of collection and division, represent dialectic. They all together represent dialectic what it is, because the purpose of dialectic first is to discover the forms, and secondly, how different forms are to be combined and separated. Okay,
Right.
that is the important thing. How, unless different forms are combined and separated, we cannot have the knowledge. Okay, so method of collection and division gives us a technique how different forms are to be combined and separated. Method of hypothesis gives us what a form should be. In Phaedo, right? You have rightly pointed out Phaedo. Phaedo is a preparation for giving us what exactly is the nature of form. In 101 A and D, Plato said that we should start with a hypothesis. You know, suppose a beautiful, what is beauty? I must, Plato here said that I must start with what appears soundest to me. Then whatever agrees with it, I have to accept, and whatever doesn't agree with it, I have to reject. That is not a form. It is not a form. This is there. Must have seen in 101D, Pedo. So this method goes on till one arrives at something which is immune from all types of questionings, which Atlantic has not done. Okay, so Atlantic method. Another thing, one you have not. You said that Elankas is just not very different from sophist methods. Sophist method of dosi logi. Double-edged. They can argue X is true, and they can also argue that X is P. They can argue that X is not P with equal force. That means they uh, argue for the sake of argument, just to win the argument, as you have rightly said. But they don't have any genuine concern for truth. But Socratic methods, Atlantic methods, is trying to reach at the truth. That is, whole purpose of the Atlantic method is to reject the false knowledge. But with Socrates, they never do that. Okay. So in this way, all these three methods combined together, they can represent what philosophy is. Philosophy is primarily definitional. As you said, that is one of the important things you have said, that it is supra-mathematical. Why, after all, why Plato has not relied on mathematics? Mathematics is a genuine science itself, but he has not relied. It is unhypothetical. Why is this? Because its foundations are simply assumed, not proved. Okay, that's why. That's why he has noesis. He has kept another thing, that noesis. The top idea. Okay, knows this idea, and that is good theory of good. And unless it is applied, good means it stands for the well-being of a Calipolis. Good state Calipolis. So why Plato did this? He was compelled because he has to depart from his pre-Socratic philosophers, because he wanted to focus his inquiry into the nature of man. Because unless our knowledge, the pre-Socratics, they have given the method, Plato adopted the same methods, but Plato's aim was that pure knowledge, unless it is directed or harnessed with the well-being of human being, or unless it is virtuous, it may turn into evil sometimes. That's why he has kept all our knowledge should be, harnessed with the good, or the idea of good which he has put at the top. This is for these are the small observation I have to put, and method of collection and division needs to be focused, because that is the primary methods what philosophy is. Because how different forms there is another method, substantive methods, the method of analysis and synthesis, the geometrical methods. Plato has used that in the method of hypothesis. That needs to be taken care of while explaining the method of hypothesis in Phaedo. These are certain points I would like to, I like you to just throw some light, so that it will be more cogent in giving what Plato's conception of philosophy in Republic and all the dialogues as a whole. You cannot consider Republic in isolation, or if you consider his notion of philosophy. So we have to give a holistic picture of the dialectics, the earlier dialectic, the earlier dialects, middle dialects, and the later dialects. So we have to, give a unified picture, so that Plato's conception of philosophy can be more succinct and more precise. Thank you, Dr. Sukla.
Thank you for your very learned remarks, sir. Out of all these observations, the question which I get is that you are asking about the question of Elenches, and then about the notion of truth, which I presume you are taking, that truth is taken in the fake sense by the sophists. I would certainly agree to the point that the truth of sophists is not a fake truth. Only the parameter or the understanding of the truth per se is different in sophists than that of Socrates. As far as there are different methods of dialectic, that I'm really not sure of. There are the same kind of methods which would be called as the method of dialogue, because that is the same process what is known as contradiction and sublation. Of course, at different times, different people have taken the different versions of this dialectic, but still the method is the same. So that I would slightly disagree with. I totally agree with you that the collection and the division terms are so crucial. Of course, I could not take it in detail as I was restricted by the time. But anyhow, so much thanks for your remarks. It was very learning for me, so enriching. Thank you, sir. I can see a question in the chat box regarding the feasibility of Calipolis in the contemporary world. Well, yes, Deepak, that was exactly the topic we were thinking about something before, some days before. Uh, every age has a particular notion or idea of the ideal state or the ideal situation. Well, it keeps on changing from time to time. It keeps on changing from time to time, in the sense, for Europe there would be a different idea or the notion of ideal state. Of course, for the Greek city states, Callipolis was the ideal or the utopian state. I am not sure that whether in the contemporary world a Callipolis can be presumed or not. But if it cannot be presumed in reality, still, does it make a difference? I mean, the standard we set ahead of us as the possibility of ideal state, maybe it will motivate us to move further and to rectify ourselves, move towards perfection, though perfection is a mirage, a utopia. So, can we take Calipolis in this particular sense? Otherwise, the issue will become too political in nature, isn't it? हम में से कई लोग ऐसे भी होंगे, there would be some people from us who have a nostalgia for the back ages. So we will say that our grandfather's time was so good, it was like a Calipolis. Then there would be the people who will say that the British time was like Calipolis, and nowadays there might be the people who might say that the real Calipolis is in Ram Raj. So I'm not sure which is the exact definition of Calipolis, whether it can be achieved or not, but at least we can try for a utopian ideal state where we can rectify our defects and move further. So that is my explanation, Deepak. I hope I have satisfied you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your response to Professor Mohin Mohammed and Dr. Deepak Kumar Behera. I don't see any other question in the chat box, but there are people, participants with us. If anybody has any issue or any suggestion or any
I have
observation, share invited. Share invited.
Dr. Rao, shall I?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, namaskar, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Dr. Ghosh, sir. Sir, sir. Yes, sir.
The Prashant Sukla's paper is very nicely conceived and presented. So I think that it is actually reiterating our own idea of what Greek philosophy is. That the meaning of philosophy is nothing but the presentation of a dialectic, or we can say that philosophy and dialectic, they are interchangeable. This is the meaning of philosophy. That what we have understood all these years. And the purpose, he said that the betterment of self with intellectual activity, that is the purpose of the philosophy. I think these two things can summarize his entire saying. And if he has anything new to say on this, kindly place it before the audience. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Sukla. Dr. Sukla. Dr. Sukla.
Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot for your learned remarks, sir. I totally agree that most of the times we believe that that dialectic is precisely what philosophy is supposed to mean. My intention here was, of course, to agree with this, but to add something more by saying that there are some texts in which the method of dialectic is given prominence over others, whereas some other sections of Plato, Platonic Republic, where he deliberately ignores the method of dialogue and goes to some other kind of methods as well. So it's a mixed bag. In fact, we have to reduce out, churn out the meaning out of some contradictory statements which come in Plato's Republic. Let's say, for the sake of example, even in the relationship between the object and the ideas, there is so much confusion in Plato's Republic. At some moment of time, he calls them as the replica of the ideas, sometimes the partial manifestations, sometimes the copies, and sometimes the images. Interestingly, for a philosopher, all this would lead to different kind of deductions. So we have to just maintain a kind of consensus and try to search for some kind of synchronization between these contradictory remarks. So totally in synchronization with what you have said, I would agree that of course it is the method of dialectic, but in addition, it is something more in the sense of elenchus, in the sense of aporia, and in the sense of a study of forms, ideas. I would more incline towards calling it the conceptual analysis of the form or the term. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sukla.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Professor Dr. Indu Khanduri, Madam. Madam, welcome, Madam. If you have any observation to make, it would be very useful to all of us. Or anybody want to make any sort of observation or put forth a question or make a suggestion, you're welcome. I don't see any question in the chat box and I don't find anybody unmuting. So let us end up the question and answer session here and briefly go into what Dr. Sukla has said. Well, I don't think I'll be able to synopsize the entire thing what Dr. Sukla has said, but still to what that I have understood and got from his lecture and also from the observations made by Professor Mohin Mohammed.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Rao.
Sir.
Dr. Rao is asking something, but he is muted. Therefore, he is not unable to ask. Dr. Rao, Dr. Rao.
Oh, muted. Yes. Let me see. Rahul. Yes. Yes. Hello. Am I audible?
Dr. Sachindra Rao is asking a question.
Acha. But he has muted.
He has muted. Therefore.
Sachindra sir. Sir, namaskar. Sir, you unmute yourself, sir. Sir, you unmute. Sir, press on that button. Press on that mic button. Rahul sir. Sir, you press on that mic button so that you will be unmuted. You have put yourself on the mute mode. Please unmute yourself, sir. Okay. No, I don't.
Yes. Now it is done.
How is
actually,
that?
No. Actually, I have nothing to ask because I could not listen to him. Much later, I joined. Anyway, I don't have any question to ask. I have not listened to him at all. Just I joined at a minute or two before. Okay. You carry on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Actually, honestly speaking, the paper of Dr. Sukla is technical, though the title looks very simple, but the paper is not that simple. He has done a lot of research on this issue, and this paper suggests us even to understand philosophy, the meaning of philosophy and the purpose of philosophy from the standpoint of Plato. is not that easy because of the technical terms involved there, the Greek terms involved there, and the methodology. But still, I find Dr. Sukla has made a very good effort in trying to bring in the idea contained in the works of Plato as simple as possible. From what I could understand from Dr. Sukla, let me put forth before all of you in few sentences. Dr. Sukla started to have a vision of philosophy through Plato, and for this he took Plato's Republic and 5 dialogues to define philosophy, to understand the nature of philosophy, and to see what is the purpose of philosophy. Now, having said this, he wanted to see the different philosophers and make a comparison between them to see whether the methodology that they adopt and the scheme that they are put into and what they assert are the same. He says no, but still they are called philosophers. They stand on the same platform, and he tries to see what that is common to all of them, what that is unanimous, what that is universally held by all of them. And he tries to see philosophy not as a discipline, not as a subject, rather he sees philosophy as a methodology that aims for the betterment of all the structures that are there in individual sciences or the spheres of knowledge. By taking the help of philosophy, help of Plato's work Republic, he says philosophy is a specific science aimed to reach at the defined study of forms or the attainment of the highest forms. Then he says philosophy is something that synthesizes life of theoretical and political activity. Then he says it is an approved study that helps to move people to make other studies in different other branches. Now, having said this, he says philosophy has both a positive and negative side. While talking about the negative side, he says philosophy deals with what says something X is not. And coming to the positive aspect of philosophy, he says philosophy is about investigating into something and making a positive contribution to knowledge. He sees philosophy as a hunger to know more, and he sees philosophy as a trait, as a character, that is necessary for for the sustenance of future generations. Now, making a reference to the sophists and also to the rhetorics, he sees a sort of foul play with the rhetorics. He's somewhat not happy with the rhetorics, rhetoricians rather, who make arguments in order to drag the opponents to a false position. This sort of fishy art or technique was somehow not acceptable to Plato. Rather, for Plato, the real purpose of philosophy is not victory over others, rather than making the truth explicit. One may lose his side, but if there is a victory of truth, that is what is required in philosophy. One may lose from his own standpoint, and that may contribute to the victory to the opponent. There is no problem in it if the truth is established. That is what Plato is trying to suggest. And the method that Plato makes use of is the Socratic method, or say the method that you talk of, the method of Alancus, then the method of hypothesis, and the method that Dr. Mohim Mohammed has added to what you have said is the method of collection and division. And all these three methods taken together will help us to understand the structure of philosophy in Plato. Now, in the Elenchus method, what we see is the application of reason, being engaged in a sort of a sort of dialogue with the people in different fields in order to arrive at a conclusion more satisfying than the earlier position. It is an attempt to reach at a clear definition and conception of something. So it may even be taken in some form, say, from what you have said, I tried to understand something like this. We may take some belief to be false and go on with it, and come up with certain evidences in the form of, say, X and Y. And suppose somehow X and Y, they entail not B, then not B being true, so B turns to be false. So this is how the method goes on. And again, the method of hypothesis that you have talked of. So we take a hypothesis and deduce certain consequences from the hypothesis. And if these consequences may find an approval or a disapproval, and any disapproval of these consequences would lead to the construction of a better hypothesis, wherein the consequences get tested. So this is how the method goes on. This is how the truth can be defined, truth can be arrived at, and thus, having this method in hand, we try to reach at the truth and not the victory of the standpoint or the assertion that we make. So this is how we can understand uh, uh, the Plato's method, and through this method, his philosophy of reaching at the highest good. And well, the last portion I could not understand when you say mathematics plays a great role in grasping the forms, and then you said you talked of the supramental mathematics that is eternal, having both epistemological and metaphysical elements, and that can define the highest good. Well, that part I'm not clear. This is what I could grasp from your lecture, and maybe some way I may be misplaced or wrong. I don't know, but this is what I got from your lecture. Thank you for the lecture. Thank you for your for sharing your understanding with all of us. I hope your lecture would have definitely helped the participants in the enrichment of knowledge in the area of Greek philosophy. But still, I want a line or two from Dr. Sukla to assert on the role of mathematics and then the supramental mathematics in the understanding of the highest good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot for a very enriching remark. I'm really obliged. Just to clarify one point, when we compare mathematics with philosophy, so the remark which comes to my mind is that which is given by P.F. Strawson in Introduction to Logical Theory, which synchronizes well with today's discussion. Strawson clearly mentions that for a philosopher as well as for a mathematician, the approach should always be second order inquiry, because both of them are trying to search for some abstract formula, such an abstract formula which is there not in the public but in the mind or in the pen and the paper, but if required, it will prove relevant for the society as a sort of application. So let's say for the sake of example, a mathematician is creating a formula a plus b whole square. In its own sense, it is something abstract which cannot be shown to others. But once the value is put in the formula, it is of course workable in the practical world. In the same sense, what I presume, Plato is talking about the idea of humanness, bookness, cowness, and every kind of form, though they are transcendental in nature, but through them, if we wish, the understanding of the practical world can be refined further. That is precisely what we call parishkar or refinement in Indian philosophy as well. So between the classical Greek philosophy, between the modern Western philosophy, as well as the Oriental philosophy, we find a proper synchronization going on between formula and reality. That's why it is the abstract science. That's why it is the supra-mathematical discipline. That's what my understanding is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, do you mean that mathematics has a role to make out equations from what we see and observe? Like the same way, philosophy has a role to define a formula or a structure
Hello,
applicable
hello,
to a large number of areas.
hello, sir.
We have Dr. Pramod Das to make some observation. Yes, you are invited.
I could not get what is supra mathematical. That I could not get. Mathematical, I understood.
Uh-huh.
Mathematical attitude, philosophical attitude are same. I could get, but I could not understand what is supra mathematical. Please.
Uh,
Uh,
once more, Om. Hello.
Sir, namaskar, sir. Sir, कौन है, sir?
I have also one question. After listening to Prashant's deliberation,
Sir,
let me ask my question, and then he can answer my question and Pramod's question simultaneously.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Carry on. Carry on.
my question is to Prashant. Um, the mathematical concepts and philosophical concepts or forms or ideas, are they of equal status? Suppose any concept of mathematics, arithmetic, or geometry, so and an abstract idea of Plato, so are they of equal status? That's my question. Mathematical concepts as well
Dr.
as
Dr. Sukla, whether the ideas or the forms that we have in philosophy can be brought in parallels with the mathematical equations that we have. This is what
yes.
Dr. Rahul wants to know.
Thank you, sir, for your remark. What I
Yes.
have emphasized here is not that they are of equal status. What I have asserted is simply that they have the same nature because of their abstractness. Abstractness in the sense that while Plato is talking about forms, or let's say Russell is talking about a term, or let's say in Indian philosophy we are talking about pratyay, or in mathematics we are talking about the formula or the sutra. All these are distinct and of the same nature because they are abstract, and despite being abstract, they are applicable with a particular method on the concrete as well. Let's say for the sake of example, on the discussion on the notion of justice, justice is something which is not sensible, it is only intelligible. But once we arrive at a standard definition of justice, then in case of any particular incidence, we can apply our understanding so as to provide some relevance for that incidence and consider it as a just incidence or unjust incidence. Now, in the same sense, once we learn, let's say, the table of 2 in mathematics, so in our kindergarten, when we learn 2 into 2 is equal to 4 and so on, so technically it was absolutely abstract. Everything was there in our mind as well as in our language. It could not be shown anywhere in the world. But once I have learned the tables of mathematics, later on in some future stage of life, I can very well apply it while purchasing some items from the grocery shop, while measuring my wall for painting or any other purpose whatsoever it is. Now, in this way, the nature of the disciplines are same because they are both abstract and both are considering form as their objective. Sir, that is what my understanding goes like.
Sir, then one thing what Dr. Pramod Das wants to know. So on one hand, you say philosophy mathematics is abstract, and at the same time, you say philosophy is supra mathematical,
Yes,
supramental mathematics or supra mathematical in nature. So,
exactly.
Uh,
should we hold? Is
Om,
mathematical
Om,
or supra mathematical?
just may I just add to something.
Yes, 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 sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You are welcome, sir. You are welcome.
Yes. Actually, what Dr. Rahul has asked, what is the difference between philosophical concepts and the forms? This is what you wanted to know. Look, mathematical concepts and the forms. These are the, what is the difference between them? There is a difference. There is a difference because Plato feels that mathematics, they assume their axioms. They have never proved their axioms. They never felt the necessity of proving the axioms. That's why mathematics has not been accepted as a genuine, yes, it is not accepted as the highest science. Okay, dialectic is the highest science because dialectic tries to investigate the foundations of mathematics, the nature, underlying nature and structure of the axioms. This is what the difference between the mathematical concepts and the forms. This is the difference. And as far as this supra mathematical, yes, philosophy is really supra mathematical. What Dr. Prasant Sukla has rightly said, because supra mathematical means something beyond mathematics, not only mathematics. It's not confined to mathematics. Something beyond mathematics, because it investigates the foundations of the mathematics and, for that matter, all the subjects. That's why it is supra mathematics. Not that it has rejected mathematics, but it has accepted mathematics, but it goes beyond mathematics. That's why it is supra mathematical. Okay. Dr. Sukla, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your question. Over to you, Dr. Sukla.
Thank you, Mohin sir. But I would slightly disagree with you. I have said that mathematics and philosophy are of the same nature because even philosophy would start with intuition, as Plato has clearly mentioned. So the first or the very minimalistic notion will of course start by intuition in both mathematics as well as philosophy. Other things I totally agree with you. And the last, the supra mathematical, I of course agree with you because there are so many forms, but still the form of the form that is good is at the top. Once we start talking about God, about good, we go beyond the realm of the mathematical discipline and we go above that. So the tangent becomes almost different because we apply the formulas to other kind of notions which are more or less transcendental in nature. That is why probably it is mentioned that philosophy is supra mathematical in nature. So in its entirety with you, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Sukla, just I'll beg to disagree with you. But intuition, Plato never relies on intuition. Intuitions has to be examined. It has to be explained through the methods. Okay, intuition is just as good as a hypothesis. It has to be confirmed. It has to be unhypothetical. Okay, this is what Plato actually meant by that.
Let me cite an example, sir. Uh,
Okay.
Suppose we are going to generate a definition for a mango, and the definition
Yes.
goes like it is an edible fruit with spherical shape and yellow in color. Of course, the
Okay.
definition is comprehensible, and it's a standard abstract definition. But if we keep on asking more and more basic questions, and let's say we come to the very basic question, what do we mean by yellow or what do we mean by sweetness? So the first definition would come by intuition. There is no other possibility to get that.
Let me, Dr. Sukla, let me refer to Phaedo, that 101, refer to it. I will agree with the most sound judgment, that is intuitions, what you tell. Okay, whatever agrees with it. Suppose I want to define beauty. Okay, so I will take that something have a particular shape and size is beautiful. But there are so many things having the same shape and size may not be beautiful. That's why that intuition, that hypothesis has to be rejected. Then another hypothesis will take its place. That is color. Again, there is something which having the same color, same size, same, it's not beautiful. So this process is going on and on till we reach something that Plato indirectly hints that beautiness, beauty itself, okay, till we reach that, we cannot arrive at the form. And that is a very rigorous method. That is not impossible, but difficult, but not impossible. This is what Plato actually. That's why he has not taken intuition for granted. He has examined intuition further and further and further till it is immune from all kinds of questioning. This is what actually meant in a method of hypothesis. Okay.
Hello.
Right, sir. I would search for the answer, but as far as I have understood,
You go through Phaedo 101D, 101E, 101, 102C. You just go through it. Phaedo 100, 101, you just go through it. Phaedo.
right.
Okay, sir.
Plato has said, and also Plato has said, everything form should origin in region, moves through region, and ends in region. This is very explicitly, very succinctly pointed out by Plato in Phaedo. You just go through Phaedo.
Dr. Sukla, kindly go through them and post your reply in the WhatsApp group that we have. Philosophy Family WhatsApp group. We'll be looking for your answer. Okay. Now I see Professor Pramod Das has something to say. Welcome, sir.
And Dr. Sukla, do you exactly mean to say that philosophy is supramental because philosophy can explain the highest idea, highest form, that is goodness, which mathematics can't? Do you exactly mean to say that philosophy can explain the highest form, that is goodness, which mathematics can't?
The simplest explanation which goes here is that mathematics talk about forms, well agreed. But philosophy goes a step ahead by also talking about the form of forms. That makes it supra-mathematical in nature.
Thank you.
I have never uttered the term supramental. I have always used the term supra-mathematical.
Supra-mathematical. Yes.
And the justification is that all forms come under the form of good or the idea of good, which is the highest purpose of philosophy. This movement from form to form of forms makes it the supra-mathematical in nature.
So mathematics fails to fulfill the highest purpose of philosophy. Mathematics fails.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
So mathematics fails to explain the highest form.
No.
Yes.
No, not at all. Mathematics has never tried to go to that discipline. So there is no question of mathematics failing here. It is almost a different kind of domain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Pramod.
Sir.
Plato is a great mathematician, a mathematician par excellence. Plato will never ignore mathematics, but philosophy has a greater role to perform. Okay, mathematics is at the level of abstract, abstraction.
Okay.
It has gone beyond, and philosophers should. What is wisdom after all? What is wisdom?
Yes.
Actually, practical application of the knowledge. Okay,
So
that's why he has
Mohit.
experimented it in Republic.
Yes.
Okay.
That means philosophy can explain the highest abstraction, which mathematics can't.
Mathematics क्या? Mathematics, because mathematics.
Dr. Sukla, do you
Yes.
agree? Do you agree with this or not? Are you saying this or not?
I am not saying that philosophy can explain. I'm simply saying that philosophy tries to explain. And that makes the whole difference.
Now, here I find the inconsistency because you are telling that philosophy is supra mathematical. In what sense? The sense is that mathematics and philosophy both deal with abstractions, but philosophy can explain the highest abstraction, that is the idea of goodness, which is the real purpose of everything. But that mathematics can't.
No, Darshni,
You mean to
please
say
listen
that?
to the statement again. What I have said is that philosophy and mathematics both talks about the forms, whereas philosophy goes to the other tangent and also tries to inquire about the form and form of forms. That is why from mathematical it becomes supra-mathematical. I have at no point tried to claim that it has actually achieved the form of forms. That's why the dialectic process is an ever-going process. We can at no point of time claim that this is the point where we have reached our final objective.
So the idea that the highest abstraction is goodness, it is an assumption. It is not the final point. It is an
Well,
assumption because
No, no, no.
because the process is
Uh,
going on.
Philosophy is moving to that. Philosophy is moving to that highest abstraction. Okay, it is a process. Philosophy as a process is moving closer to that highest abstraction. So Dr. Sukla said that philosophy is a form of the forms, and that highest form is yet to be achieved. Philosophy as a discipline is moving closer and closer to it, and hopefully we'll never reach that point. And maybe
no,
when we
no.
reach that, we'll be nowhere there.
Prasan, no, yeah, Om. That is not the fact. Plato
Okay,
will
sir.
never say that we will not reach at the forms of forms. Plato will never subscribe to this idea.
So what is
Okay,
that? Then what is
that
that?
is difficult. Plato says that is difficult, but
But
forms has
achievable.
yes,
But
form of
achievable.
form.
But achievable.
Yes,
But
form
achievable.
is.
Okay, okay, okay.
Let me just give me a minute. I will just explain you. If you interpret the nature of form as a theory, okay, as a theory, then perhaps most of your problems, your perplexity will be overcome. Okay, I have tried to see forms in the in terms of a theory, because theory explains the underlying nature and structure of the thing, which makes x as x, and form. This is exactly what the form does. And this form of forms is a good idea of good is there. Plato will never say that will not touch. It is difficult. It is very difficult. It is a process. It's difficult, but we have to. There is a destination of good, and we must reach that. But the road is not that simple. Road is very rigorous, and that's why dialectic is a very rigorous methods. Okay, we have to cultivate it very carefully, very rigorously.
Okay.
Plato will never say that it is an ongoing
Thank,
process and it will be never ending process.
thank you,
Plato will
thank you,
never.
thank you. Thank you. So form of forms is also achievable, attainable,
Yes,
difficult.
yes,
Not difficult.
yes, difficult. This is not impossible. It's not a
It is
contradiction.
okay, okay. So that has to be corrected. Form of
Yes,
forms, the highest form is achievable, it is attainable, but the road is not that easy. It is a difficult
yes,
road, and we have to
right.
carry this road. Okay, thank
Yes,
you
yes.
very much, sir, for making adding value to this. Dr. Sukla, the final remark. So let me know from you, so that supra mathematical method. When we say philosophy as a supra mathematical method, we see philosophy as the foundational stone to mathematics, and also as something that goes beyond mathematics. Is it so?
exactly. Thank you.
So actually today we have Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana, who is a coordinator. He was somehow unavailable due to some work in hand. So he is there. I want him to end up this session. Dr. Maharana. And hello, are you there, sir? Well, he is not responding anyhow. So we had a very nice session today. Lot of things were discussed. The participants, they raised very serious questions. A lot of things got into the discussion. So the idea of mathematics got into the discussion, which was never thought of before. Well, Kailash Mana sir is there. Well. Sir, sir.
Okay. Hello. Am I audible?
Sir, you propose the vote of thanks and give your remarks, sir.
Okay. Good evening to everybody today, and I deem it a privilege and honor to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks by the coordinator of this evening, Professor Dr. K. Omnana Rao. And today it's my pride privilege to offer vote of thanks to Professor Sukla for his enlightening speech in the August gathering of this evening. Today, what I have already listened from his lecture, he's a distinguished young philosopher in his own right, and everybody in the webinar uh, have listened the way he was reflecting his thought and ideas on the scheduled topic. Today, I derived some personal benefit by participating this webinar. Particularly, I have been very much benefited by the interaction made by Professor Mohini Mahawad sir and others. It is indeed a present a privilege for me to extend a vote of thanks to all the professors, including Professor Mohini Mahmud sir, Professor Ranjit Ghosh sir, Professor S. Raul sir, Pramod sir, and others for their keen observation and interaction on the topic. I also thank all the scholars of philosophy for attending this webinar and for making the webinar a successful. I also thank Dr. K. Omnana Rao for his nice coordination and interaction and observation in the whole session. And I once again extend my gratitude to all the participants, to all the organizers of Philosophy Family for inviting a great scholar like Professor Sukla to our family. And today his talk has enlightened us. We have been very much benefited by his scholarly approach and by his reflection on the Greek philosophy. And today, I again offer my gratitude to Sri Pramod Kumar Das, the host and the convener of Philosophy Family, for inviting Professor Sukla and for making a great arrangement for the cause of philosophy and for the cause of philosophizing. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dr. K. Umnaranao, sir.
Thank
Hello.
you. Thank you, Kailash sir, for proposing this vote of thanks. Thanks everybody. Now the meeting is closed. Thank you everybody.
Yeah, Om.
Sir.
Yeah, just I want to talk to Prashant.
Yes, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Tell Prashant to unmute the speaker. I know him personally.
He has unmuted.
Prashant, do you remember me?
Yes, sir. Of course, sir.
I am Mr. Raul. We attended 2 courses, one in Lucknow and another one in Simla.
Yes, sir.
You 3 were coming from Delhi. Subhankari, yourself, and the other one, I don't remember her name. But you 3 were together.
Yes, sir. That was 10 years before. Yes, sir. Thank you for remembering, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I am sorry, I could not hear you from the beginning. One of my students came and he interrupted. And by the time I opened the net, your talk was over. And I picked up some question from the discussion. Okay, so you are most welcome. And we will meet some other time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
We are really grateful to Dr. Sukla. Dr.
Yes,
Sukla,
yes.
we are very much grateful to you. The entire philosophy family is grateful to you because you always venture into difficult area of philosophy, and we are really grateful. Your presentation was wonderful, and representation of Dr. Mohin Mohammad was also very beautiful, and the synopsis of Dr. Rao was also still wonderful. I am grateful to all of you, all of you. This was a very good session. Thank you all. Now the meeting is over.
Okay.